Let's talk about red flags. The ones you tried to paint green, explain away, or ignore because you really just wanted it to work. We've all done it, you guys. And in this episode, we're talking about how to spot those red flags before they turn into full blown deal breakers and how to stay true to who you are, no matter what is standing in front of you. Because losing yourself to keep someone else comfortable, that is not love. That's self abandonment. And we are done doing that. Let's get started. Welcome to the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast dedicated to helping women navigate the emotional journey that is divorce. I'm your host, Erica, and if you're trying to figure out life after the big D, welcome to the club. Whether you're contemplating divorce or dealing with the aftermath or any of the many phases in between, the club has got you covered. Each week, you'll hear stories from women who have been in your shoes. This isn't about spilling tea on divorce details. This is about giving you the tools to take control of your own healing journey. Listen in weekly for advice, tips, and tools to help you move through each stage of the process. Welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. I'm your host, Erica, and today I have Chavisa Horemans with us. Now, Chavisa is a trauma-informed coach and consultant who specializes in divorce and co-parenting. So she is here to share her wisdom and her research all about how we avoid those red flags. So welcome, Chavisa. Glad to have you here today.
So lovely to be together. Thanks, Erica, for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. And such a powerful topic, right? Because so in my world, I have talked a little bit about like, where's the yellow flags? Okay. Because we have kind of become a society polarized in the fact that it's all green or it's all red. But the reality is that there's really a continuum or a spectrum, and each person is a little different. What might be a yellow flag to me might be a red flag to you. And so it's about learning how to distinguish what color is this flag to me, and how do I not lose myself in trying to make it fit or make it work when the reality is it's a red flag and we need to move on.
So, I love that you're framing it this way with this metaphor, because I want to build on this metaphor since it's visual.
Beautiful.
So we've got like the red flag, the green flag, and as you said, the yellow flag. And in my conceptualization, I would say, look at where the flags are clustered. Is there a cluster of them? Because, we're all capable of bad behavior. We can all have personality flaws and bad traits that we do habitually, right? But it's when these behaviors cluster, this is where we can start to identify like triangulation of red flags. And then we know, and science can show us, research can demonstrate for us that there are problems ahead. And so we want to avoid that. So yes, there can be like sparse flags, and we're all capable of bad behavior. And yes, some of them you might interpret as red and I might interpret as yellowish, and some variants of the spectrum. But it's really like, are there 3 or 4 of those? Did you just put those down in the last 24 hours? Or did those 4 red flags grow over 4 years? Like, we're talking about frequency and triangulation.
I love that because I'm a big fan of patterns. And so we're looking for repeated patterns. So let me give you guys some examples and then we can keep diving into this. Because when we first start talking, we're talking not about, there are some extreme red flags. Physical violence, extreme red flag. Never, ever, ever is that somebody's yellow flag. Never, ever is that okay. But when we're looking at that middle frequency, right, that middle, like the example that I have is, so my partner has 3 boys who all have severe medical disabilities. I knew that going into it. Now, when I have shared that with people, when we were first dating, I cannot tell you how many people told me to leave. That they said, oh, hell no, I am not dealing with that. That is too much, right? And it is a lot. It's a lot to deal with as they get older and as things progress. But that was a choice that I made. So I had to sit with that. And I had to say, okay, here's a condition in his life. Not a condition that he can control, but a condition that is part of who he is, how he responds to things, and what it'll mean for my life and my son and what it means to be a step parent and our future. And I had to sit with that and evaluate and say, okay, is this something that I'm willing to take on? Is it something I'm ready to take on? Because for some people, it was a hard pass. It was an instant not going anywhere near it. And for me, I'm a believer in you can't control the conditions. So I was like, hey, this is a yellow flag. We're going to have to tread carefully because this is a very heightened topic. But I do believe we can get through it. And I think we can still find mutual respect and love and support throughout it.
So I think you're raising a great aspect. And this is about like what we can manage, what we think we can emotionally tolerate. And also, I think in the situation you're describing, it's really about how strong are the communication skills? How committed are we to communicating? And sure, there's going to be challenges. Like it's given, especially, I mean, high functioning, low functioning, however functioning people, you know, if you add more people into the mix, there's going to be more spaces for conundrums. So it's really about the communication and then the conflict resolution, right? But I would say the thing is we can agree to circumstances. Like for me, when I'm online dating and I see a photograph of a motorcycle, it's a hard no because I don't want to be a widow of somebody who's being killed on the highway. So I'm like, it's a hard no because I don't want that life experience. And I don't envision, especially in this climate, that driving a motorcycle is the safest decision one could make. So, you know, we all make our decisions about what we feel is acceptable to live with and what we can manage with.
Yeah, I love that. And that's a really great example because I was very guilty of looking at the dating profiles and, seeing whatever little details they give you. Because obviously, nobody airs their red flags right out of the gate. Okay. So we do have to create some boundaries or some self-protection to be able to comfortably evaluate. But let's just say, like, as I'm looking at the dating app, the question that would show up in my head would be like, can I thrive amidst these conditions? Right. And that's the wrong way to go about it. Yes, there is an aspect in every relationship. Can I be happy amidst the conditions of my current relationship? Absolutely. But to your example, like if there's a deal breaker of like, I don't ever want to be on the back of a motorcycle and nor do I want my partner to be on the back of a motorcycle, you have to stand true to your own knowing to say, no, not how can I mush myself into a shape that would fit into this lifestyle? Or how can I maybe try and control things? I don't know if you watch Love is Blind, but we're like watching the Denver season, right? And there was the drinking topic came up, right? And she was having a lot of like, the drinking. And I was like, that's a real thing, right? Is it a red flag? Is it a yellow flag? It's different on personal perspective, but you have to get clear on what you can tolerate. Not, can I change him? Can I get him to change his drinking? Or can I get him to sell his motorcycle? That's not the point. That's also not real love because you're not accepting that person for who they are. Let's talk a little bit though about like the distinguishing things of red flags, because I think that the example I gave you, that's really me looking at the conditions of what I can live with or what I'm willing to explore with somebody. But I think that there are also, to your point earlier, some patterns that tend to show up that can help us understand that maybe something is a little bit more intense than you're really allowing yourself to believe. Because there is a time when we just have to get real clear that like, this is not healthy.
So I think there's two spaces. Both of the pieces of work that I want to bring to you are evidence-based. And so this is research data. So the first is around behaviors. Now, we can only get to having behaviors with another person once we're in physical interaction with them, right? Even when you start online dating, which is often how most people meet, there's the beginning of an interaction there. So, there's very clear red flags that we know that triangulate towards problems into the future. And I can go through those with you in a bit. But the other piece that you're talking about is that there's beautiful research now on rhetorical linguistics. And so it's about taking the language that people use on their online apps, how they articulate themselves to others. And when you understand how to read the signifiers and the coding in it, you can identify a whole bunch of implicit material that the writer is not necessarily intended to convey. But if you're mindful of it and pre-aware of it, which is why I want to do this red flag training and warning signs training, when you're mindful of it, then you can pick it up really early. So I'll give you a couple examples.
So cool, by the way. This is
Oh,
really cool
it's
stuff.
it's mind blowing. It's like so awesome on the science. So some of them are around, like, we live in a society that tends to be patriarchal. And so some people in their dating profiles will do behaviors that articulate that they are at the top of the pyramid and you are an underling, right? So it sets up a hierarchy about how the relationship, how they envision relational interactions, how they envision relationships, and how, when you partner with them, how the relationship is going to be according to their worldview. So I'll give you some examples, like conditional decency, where they say, like, I'll treat you like a queen if you treat me like a king. Like, gosh, that's so appealing, right? Who doesn't want to be like the chosen one and like adored? But also what they're saying inside that is, if you want to be treated like a human being, you need to do certain behaviors above and beyond in order to be deserving of my treating you like a person. And so it's kind of like, oh, so now when we start to like look at that language about, oh, I could be a queen, he could be a king, this could be amazing, we could rock and roll, then you think, oh, I'm basically being invited to be in an insubordinated relationship. His understanding is how he's going to determine how he treats me. Well, gosh, maybe I'll just pass on that one.
It's about power in knowing, right? Power in being aware. And I think that's where it's so interesting right now, because a lot of things are so subtle. And even when we first talked, you guys, full transparency, when we first talked, we have some different point of views on things because of the realm of the women that we work with. My realm has not heavily dealt with a lot of severe control and abuse issues. So we're in a little bit, to be honest, you guys, a safety bubble of the reality of all of the horrendous things that could happen. And Chavisa works in a little bit of a different world. And so again, spectrums. Remember, everything is a spectrum of like, has this shifted too far in one direction, or is this still okay? So being able to be aware of that, because I agree with you. Nothing should ever be conditional. A relationship is never tit for tat, right? Like, well, if you do the dishes, then I'll do the dishes. Or if you do this, then I'll do that. It should never be that way. And I'm gonna jump right in there. But one of the specific to that example, one of those gray areas is this rise too of the more traditional living, right? Where you want the man who works and you want the woman who stays home. And for some people that works, and for some people it doesn't. And again, this is about understanding what is the interaction between the two people to know what you are okay with. Full transparency, my partner is very much like would love the traditional relationship, but I really also like to work, and I also really like to have purpose in my work. My life's purpose does come to life through my job. It always has. And so we had to figure out what that looks like, right? We had to figure out what those roles look like. And again, it's that question of, is this a deal breaker? Is it a deal breaker when he does expect that I take the majority of the meals? And I hate cooking, you guys. I hate it. And so for when we first started dating, we would have these conversations. It was like, okay, deal breaker or not, I don't cook. And I'd be like, I asked him, I'm like, hey, any chance you like to cook? Because my ex cooked a lot and I don't really like to. And he's like, I don't cook. I will buy the meal when we go out, but I will not cook the meal at home. And so then I had to decide, is that a deal breaker for me? Because for some people that would be. Some people really want that 50-50 split. Some people really want the more active partner, and either is fine. The exception of like, don't choose when we get to the nasty end of the spectrum. Right? Don't choose when we get to the controlling aspect, when we get to the ones that officially hide themselves, sounding like they're really nice things, but they're not. And so you have to start to be able to distinguish between what is love bombing, what is somebody kind of creating a bunch of smoke and mirrors to hide the flags. I mean, they're literally throwing the smoke at you with the red flag, but there's so much smoke you can't see it.
Well, I think so a lot of the people that I work with, it's around coming back, getting grounded, understanding you're autonomous. You make your decisions. Like, do you want, like in our examples of this conversation, do you want to live with a man with 3 kids? Do I want to live with a man who rides a motorcycle? Like, we make autonomous decisions about what we're agreeing to. We don't try and change the person in front of us. We just try and let them be exactly as they are and let them show who they are to us as they are, because that's what you're getting, right? That's what you're agreeing to, and that's what you're getting on board with. I love that the clients that you're working with are not needing the kind of services that I offer, which is divorce and co-parenting and chronic health coaching for women. But
Some
the
do.
thing is, yeah, some of them probably do. But the thing is, part of why I started doing this training around red flags and early warning signs and predictive indicators of abuse and violence was kind of like a humorous joke to myself, like, how can I put myself out of work? Because I specialize in high conflict divorces, and I work with women who have been court involved for years and years and years, and the drain and strain on them. And like a lot of the folks I work with are experiencing acute trauma. And I was like, how can I support not having this cohort come up? And the way is to become conscientious. And I don't think it's age related, but for young women, young people to be aware of what red flags and warning signs are, but also older women. And especially like if you're restarting in relationships, after one that's completed, wow. Like for me, I never want to have the relationship I've had in the past. So when I learn these and embody these practices, then I can be way more discerning about the early signifiers before there's any major problems about what it is to watch for. And these are like science verified. My partner acted arrogant or entitled. Now, lots of people act like that. So it's not like a one-off problem, but again, it's the triangulation of behaviors when they start to cluster and the frequency, right? So my partner acted arrogant or entitled. My partner reacted negatively when I said no to something they wanted. My partner resented being questioned about how they treat me. My partner disregarded my reasoning or logic because it did not agree with theirs. And my partner created an uncomfortable situation in public. Like, I think back to past relationships I've had where somebody made a big scene in public. And I was like, if I'd known that was, hell to come, holy moly, if I'd been like, come to, pull out now, like this is the sign, instead of, because I think a lot of people who are used to sort of that yellow red flag space they're not really reading fully the situation that they're in. Sometimes it's like the water's warmer and warmer and warmer. And then it's like, by the time you articulate there's a problem, it's like, let's check the temperature of the water. And it's like, babe, you're in boiling water here. Like you didn't notice it getting really, really hot in here. But if you're enculturated, you don't notice.
Well, and it's gradually then suddenly, right? We don't notice, you don't notice when you get in the shower in the morning. Even today, it's a little cold out now. We're in the Midwest here. It's getting chilly in the morning. It's like under 30 degrees here. But okay, so I turn it on and it's like, ooh, that's hot. And like 5 minutes later, I'm like, oh, it's not hot enough. Turn it a little more, right? So we don't really notice when things shift just a little bit, or, one outburst happens, right? You're newly dating and he loses his shit in public over something that really, like, the reaction does not correlate to whatever your ask was. Okay. So you're already like, oh, that was weird. But we start to rationalize, right? Oh, well, he's really stressed at work. Or, he doesn't treat me like this normally. He must have just been having a bad day. And that's like, the temperature was low, but we saw a spike. And what happened? The water stayed a little hotter, but we're like, well, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And then we get into it, and now we're living together, and now we got kids, and now we do truly love these people, and they're still doing horrendous things. And it gets really, really hard because we lose ourselves, to your point of like, how do we have autonomy? How do we figure out who we are and what we deserve? Because it gets all muddled up. All those dang love hormones and relationship and codependency and like stuff that a lot of times we're not even aware of is guiding us.
So that's where, when we put those red flags in, we see, are they clustering? What's the frequency of them like? Is this like an outbreak in public every day, every couple of weeks, once every 4 years? Like maybe once every 4 years is navigable, but every 2 weeks, that seems to be quite a few, right? So it's really looking at the frequency and the triangulation. And then the other piece is around, especially for people who've been in relationships, and that's why this training is so great for young women is because, of course, a relationship that isn't working or that is abusive or violent, it is really hard to leave. And it's really hard to leave exactly for what you're talking about, Erica, because you put so much investment in. You put emotional investment, you've got shared resources, maybe you have car payments or accommodation or kids, shared relationships, shared social networks. And so it puts so much pressure to make it work or try. And so it's way easier, if we had a clean slate, we were young, we're like, okay, here are the warning signs. Oh, I went on 2 dates. I saw this behavior. You know what? I'm just not going to go with the third one. That's before you've got the shared bank account. So it's way easier to implement for people who are at the commencing stages of a relationship, because at the beginning stages of a relationship, before it's formed and before there's tons of investment, that's where we can reposition ourselves. But I want to speak to one other spot, and you spoke to this earlier. It's very much about like selfhood, feeling strong in yourself, listening to your intuition, understanding where your weak spots are, understanding like with what you're familiar with from your childhood, like what feels normal to you. And then also doing some self-work in terms of like, I have a weakness for caregiving. I have a weakness for fixing, like actually the person we choose in front of us, we accept them exactly as they are. If they need to be fixed or changed or improved, then that's not loving them exactly as they are, right?
Hey, it's Erica, and it's halfway through December. The feels are rolling, the pressure is building, and the big celebrations are coming. Have you started the Holiday Heart to Heart podcast yet? It's a private podcast designed to help you navigate the holidays. Built from audience requests, this podcast tackles the tough topics like what traditions do you keep or rebuild? How do you handle the family questions? And what do you do when the emotions hit and the tears don't stop? Visit thecrazyexwivesclub.com/holiday to learn more. So I think an interesting piece to layer onto what you're saying, and it's a big part of the self-awareness, right? When we try and change somebody, a lot of times we're trying to protect our own triggers and our own experiences from our past. And so there's this line between being able to understand what is something that is like, I don't want to deal with that, and that's not okay. And what is something that is being triggered because of your own emotional damage that you're trying to repeat. And I think that that's really important when it comes to being able to figure out where these flags lie. Not only the frequency, but when we're reliant on understanding, oh, it's up to me to decide based on, I love that list that you shared. So based on evaluating the list of what should I be concerned about, and then I'm looking at the frequency of it, maybe it is only every once in a while, or maybe there's a thing that really bothers me. My next part would be want to be curious and say, okay, is that my own trigger that I'm stepping on that I need to do the work to heal because relationships are mirrors? Or is this something that is valid? And I think that's a big gray area because it's reliant on our own head and we don't know what we don't know, or we don't know how to trust what we believe. So how can you guide somebody through that process?
I think the space we're talking about, as I infer, is trustworthiness, right? So if I trust no one, that's a disaster for me. If I trust everyone, that's a disaster for me. So really it's about how to become discerning about trust. Now, I think it's really useful to do some very, gentle and slow mindfulness about the space and family that we grew up in. Like, was it trustworthy? Was it safe? Was it not trustworthy? Was it not safe? Because that speaks to how part of how we're, again, that temperature in the water, what we're familiar with, what we feel is reasonable, just experientially and environmentally. So I think that's part of it. But I think it's also really important to like do some inner work and know exactly what your weaknesses are, right? Like I fall for men who are, I'm going to use examples that don't pertain to me. Like I fall for men who are super cheeky and pushy, or I like really men who are, whatever, really dominant, or I like men who are really need to be taken care of, or I like men who, I mean, I'm giving all straight examples in this, but like, or I like men who need to be taken care of or that I want to fix. Like we have to kind of look at like what it is we're trying to achieve. And that's where I think it's like really important to be aware of what our kind of patterning is and what our origin commencing worldview is, and then start to do some work on that so that we understand I'm not here to fix anybody. I want a mutually responsive taking care of, but it's not a me fixing him. I'm not here to mom. I'm here to partner, which is more of a shared commitment that's mutual.
Yeah, because they are adults, right? I totally fell into that, like, I'm a mom partner, not a partner partner. So that was something I had to unlearn from my marriage. I had to unlearn that I thought I had all the right answers and allow the space for that. There's different ways that things could happen. We can both be correct. And to your point, we were just having this conversation last night, actually, because I came from a family who did not drink ever, like maybe a glass of wine at a holiday celebration. And I am partnered. We call him the Jolly Irishman, right? On the podcast, everybody laughs, drinks whiskey or whatever all the time. And his entire family does. So there very much is a culture of like when family is together, we're enjoying an old fashioned, we're enjoying some Jameson. Like that's their family celebration. And it's so different from mine. And so when it first came up, I was like, ooh, wait, is this going to be a problem? Because it is so different from how I was raised. And it is so different from the experiences that I have. And so it was through that discernment, right? Through trusting myself. If the drinking became a problem, would I know? Would I stand up for how I want to be treated if when he was drinking, he was treating me poorly? And would I be willing to leave if it became a problem and continue to get bigger? And those were hard questions that I had to ask myself. Like, could I trust that I would walk away again if things moved in the wrong direction?
And I think it's coming back to, like social drinking, social eating, social, activities.
Yeah.
Like we all have our thing that we do for enjoyment that others may perceive as complicated space. But I think really it comes down to the behavior, right? Like, is there drinking and then arrogance and entitlement? Is there drinking and then creating an uncomfortable situation in public? Is there drinking and then disregarding your reasoning and logic because they didn't agree with it? Because it can be drinking and just be peacefulness and gentleness. And who knows, maybe it produces a totally different behavior like affection. It's really about like what behaviors are coming up.
Yeah. And I know that you have a blog that you wrote that dives deep into this. So you guys, that's linked in the show notes for you to go deeper because there are like 25 different, are they characteristics or like questions to ask or kind of things you mentioned?
So it's two research bodies that I'm bringing together. And the first is like physical behaviors and like emotional behaviors that have strong indicators towards abuse and violence. And the other one is rhetorical patterns for language and how to figure out where the issues are so that you can see. So for example, like when somebody says, I'll go off on a tangent. When somebody says online dating, I'm a very busy man. Okay, like let's unpack that, right? He's a very busy man. Well, I would argue, Erica, that we're all busy, like in this contemporary world. But also what's implicit in that is that he's saying, I don't manage my time really well. Because I'm super busy too, but I would never describe myself that way. But the other thing he's saying is that my time is more valuable than yours. And so it again produces a hierarchy where his time is more valuable and yours is that's just what's happening. But the other thing is like when we translate this in the recommendation in this research is to translate it into a benign space. So if I went to a job interview, let's say, and as part of the interview, I said, well, I'm a very busy person. Do you think I'd get the job? Or they'd be like, she's too busy for this job. Yeah.
I love that tip. Would you say it at a job interview? Like, yes or no? Real easy way. Because that literally is what dating is. It's a job interview.
Exactly.
You are interviewing candidates to see if they are the right fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm also curious as we near towards the end of the episode, what about in your blog, do you talk more too about how do we find ourselves, right? How do we stand in our knowing, especially for somebody who may be fresh out of divorce, we don't know which end is up at this point. Like I know I was started to rethink a lot of conversations, and you can always choose to see something in love or see something in hate. And, maybe you saw it in love in the moment, but now you're reviewing it with hate and you're like putting new tone behind every conversation you ever had with somebody, and your whole world's kind of turned upside down. So, what would be just like one or two easy things somebody can do to start practicing staying true to themselves and in their knowing?
Yeah. So I do that all the time. So I work as an empowerment coach for women, right? So I'm working with women going through major life transitions. And so the biggest piece and always the grounding is around somatics, right? Coming into our bodies. When we do somatic practices, we get regulated and grounded. When we get regulated and grounded and our nervous systems are in a good spot, then we can be better problem solvers. We're more creative. We're able to make more strategic decisions about what we're doing, right? So when I work with women, I really want to see them get into their space. And so sometimes I'll say to them, like, I think about this often, like, you've got a steering wheel, right? This is the steering wheel of who's driving your life. And it's like, where is the steering wheel? Is it like 4 feet in front of you that you're just going along with your life? Or is it like a foot in front of you where it's like, I'm kind of in charge of the steering wheel. Like, are your hands on it or off it? Like, do you want to be driving this thing? Like, no, I don't want to be responsible for this thing. Or is your steering wheel like firmly in your pelvis where you're like in your power and you're like, I'm driving, like I'm making decisions. I'm conscious. I'm present. I'm aware. I've decided to do this or that. I'm not doing that. And so it's like, who's driving? I work with people a lot with metaphor so that they can figure out who's driving. And then once we sit in our selfhood and we trust and we relearn to trust our intuition, that we know much bigger than our logical minds, then we can pick up all this beautiful information to make really good decisions for ourselves. And often it's like, it's not just this option or this option. When we're sitting in our power, when we're sitting in our wholeness and we're grounded and regulated, actually, maybe there's that option and this option and this option, or maybe we could weave those two together and make that. And so it's things that we could never imagine coming together. And so we craft new spaces for how to be in the world.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so timely. We literally just had divorce detox hour in the club this week. And so divorce detox hour once a month, we just do an hour of embodiment. And here's the cool part. We did 20 minutes. So the call was an hour, but I did a 20-minute active guided like EFT practice. And we were focused on the feelings of overwhelm. And the coolest part was that one of the women who had attended, she shared that that was the most time that she had actually invested in her own well-being since the divorce, even though she does therapy, even though, right? But it was just to sit with yourself in your body, to find that rooted, grounded sense, to come home. I was talking about a heart center, to come home to your heart, because then you do trust yourself. You can hear it above all the other chaos. Because for me, it's always is it coming from me, or is it coming from all of that noise? You're not good enough. You'll never have it. Who are you to do it? Like, how dare you think that you get to have that? That's the chaos noise. That's outside. That's not actually you. And so when you can calm that through the somatics, through the body, you got to get into the body. It can change things very quickly, 20 minutes. And she was like, hot damn, I haven't experienced this in over a year of therapy. And I was like, we got you. Like, we got you in the club. This is what we want you to do. It's just a frequency shift, right? And we'll hold the space and we help you get there, because then you know what you want to do and how you want to move forward.
Yeah, you just change your position on the ladder in polyvagal theory. And the other piece is nature, right? Like, nature is medicine. It is like, I always say to my clients, like, self-care as religion. It's time to get religious. Like self-care, and taking yourself into nature spaces. If there's nothing nature around you, put your hand in soil and start potting plants, like, get into nature and be in nature spaces, because they're very, very restorative and healing for our nervous systems, and our bodies respond so well to wild open spaces.
And it's not even like you're necessarily gonna, if you went outside and hugged a tree, you wouldn't all of a sudden be like, like the skies open up and you have all your answers. But I'm going to tell you, you kind of are. So I had the experience. My dog has been gone now for 3 years, I think, since she's passed away. And so I would regularly walk her multiple times a day. We had a short loop, a medium loop, and a long loop, depending on how much time. And then when that went away and, Midwest, so snow and 30 below, I just bought a treadmill inside the house and I would try and get on that. And I recently was doing some energy work, healing. And the woman was like, you need to get back outside. And I was like, yeah, I'm trying to get my steps. And she's like, I'm not talking about steps. I'm talking about like nature has codes. It just feels good to be in it. So bundle up. She's like, bundle up, Buttercup, because you need to get outside. So been like hat, big parka coat, everything as I'm doing my walk in the morning. And I can tell you 1 week in, I feel so much better. So happy. So less of the anxiety feel, the overwhelm feel that was rising in my chest and like, how am I going to get this done? And here's the deal, guys. I don't go out and I'm not walking and looking on my phone. And most times I actually actively try to avoid phone calls while walking too. Just be present. I might put on a playlist. I might put on a little Abraham Hicks to listen to, but I put it in my pocket and then I just observe. And I'm amazed that I've lived here, full time for over a year now in this town. 4 years I've been in this town. Every walk, I'm like, oh, I've never noticed that before. And the trees shimmer different and the, clouds. So get in nature. It can be the fastest fix. Even eat your lunch outside. Go for a 15-minute walk in the afternoon. Just do something to get outside.
Yep, I agree. As like be listening to water movement, creeks, rivers, ocean, listening to water movement is very healing. And the other thing I would say is take the stairs, when you can, if you're able-bodied. It's like just to be, again, present in your body. You can feel your muscles starting to fatigue as you get higher and higher up. And it's just like you're getting present in your body.
I love that. Well, Chavisa, I want to thank you for joining us today. You guys, as I mentioned, she has an entire blog on this topic. She also has a masterclass that's launching. So if you are interested in learning more, you can get all the details to connect with Chavisa in the show notes. They're also on the crazyexwivesclub.com under episodes so that you're able to get the tools you need to navigate the next phase of your journey. I want to thank you for joining us today. You guys, if you are looking for the space to rise up, please come join the club. It is an amazing community of women who truly are showing up to support each other every single week. We've got a book club launching. We've got all sorts of new, amazing ways that we are truly changing the way that women move through divorce recovery. So give yourself grace, go for a walk, and we'll be back next week with another great episode. And that's it. Another great episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast for women learning how to heal from their divorce. Tune in next week for more advice and tips to help you figure out life after divorce. And until then, give yourself grace, do the best you can, and know that this is all part of the process.